Okay, let's get going. Let's kind of pick up where we left off. We have a few slides left here to go through. A couple of topics. Just as a quick review, kind of wake us up and get us ready for the morning. What is negligence? Anyone take that challenge? What is negligence?
Someone neglects to do their duty.
Okay, it's a neglect of duty, isn't it? Either by an act of omission or commission, right? So what four things must be proven in order to you be deemed negligent?
Duty to act, you breach the duty to act, the patient suffered harm or injury, or the injury was a result of breach of duty.
Okay. That proximate cause line, right? So I just don't want to beat legal to death. I just want to stress the importance of it. Dean and I talked this morning. He's in the paramedic class. They're in the same boat you're in, kind of like, first week, legal, all the chapters look the same because it's a DOT-driven objectives. And he says, should I really have to lecture on legal at the paramedic level? What do you think?
Yes.
But they're all EMTs in there. Is the legal any different here than at the paramedic level? Not really. So he's just going to do a kind of a recap and refresher. He's really counting on you as EMT, knowing you're, at least enough legal to stay out of trouble or stay safe. So you're going to get this again if you go on, and all of us are going to go on. So you'll see a word called a tort, and I'll be honest with you, I had to go back and use Wikipedia to find, just what is a good definition of a tort? You may have a better one than I do. I'm certainly no lawyer. What's a tort? It's just a claim. It's just a claim against you. It's just somebody saying you did wrong. And so we look at some of these types of torts up here. Now, some are intentional, some are not intentional, but if you don't know you're messing up, I guess you could plead that argument, but let's look at some of them up here and just get a quick overview. First one is abandonment. This is a big issue in EMS. This process will launch a state investigation, and I've been involved in a few of those state investigations. Kind of as an observer, I've never been charged with abandonment. But people get this messed up, and we're back to that list. What I thought I knew about abandonment. What's it sound like to you?
You leave someone.
Yeah.
Like if you have a patient, you leave them for some reason.
Okay, you started with a patient and you left them for some reason. That doesn't mean you can't ever leave your patient, but the general rule is I will leave them with someone of equal or higher training than myself. It'll automatically come back to this. You turned your patient care over to nurse somebody at the hospital, and you say, well, is a nurse the equal or higher training? Is it?
Two different factors.
It's two different practices. You're not turning the patient over to the nurse. You're turning the patient over to the facility. You're turning the patient over to the hospital, the emergency room. That entity in itself is certainly higher training than yours. So that's what's going on there. I think there's some sample run reports up here, and it says at the bottom, transfer patient care to nurse, blah, 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 RN. And you go, well, that's not what we're really talking about here. If you walk into the hospital and take your patient and you put them in a bed and walk out and never talk to anybody, that's abandonment. And you're like, how's that abandonment? They're in that same hospital. Yeah, nobody knew. And you didn't transfer all the information that came along with it. Another little sticky, you get on scene, you got multiple patients. One of them is critical, and there's an EMT and paramedic there. The paramedic will work on the critical one and leave the less critical to the EMT. Maybe that person just has a broken arm. And you say, well, shouldn't the paramedic stay with the broken arm? No, the EMT can handle that, if that makes sense to you as well. Especially in a triage environment or multiple patient environment, I'm like, okay, this one's got a broken ankle. This one has a tension pneumothorax. EMT, you take that one. That's just got that. That's not abandonment. But I've heard people make that argument. Oh, you made contact. You got to stay with that one. It's not abandonment. Equal or higher training. And you could probably add to that, reasonable and prudent. That's reasonable to leave that with an EMT. They can manage that. There were more serious things going on. Any other questions about abandonment? One more little funny. You walk up to the scene, you realize the scene's not safe, and you leave the scene. You don't go in, but you can see the patient. If you turn around and leave, have you abandoned that patient? It's not safe. When does that so-called contractual obligation start with a patient? I mean, how close can I get? Someone said it, I think. How close do I have to get? How far into it do I have to get to whereas if I left, it would be abandonment?
Start providing care?
Start providing care? That's good. It's a little before that, huh?
When you ask for consent.
There you go. Perfect. When some establishment of consent, whether it's implied or expressed, when consent has been gained, you have entered into a legal contractual agreement with that patient. Now, I use the word patient a lot. When I say patient, you know who I'm talking about? If I say patient, do you know who I'm talking about? Yeah, somebody I'm providing care to. In nursing world over there, you'll hear the word client. Those of you in the hospital, do you ever hear the word client come up, or is it still patient?
As patient. Most
people revert back to it because we're providing care.
Right.
But, yeah, I hear that a lot over there. They call them clients. Why do they call them clients?
That's what they are.
That's what they are. They've entered into a contractual obligation with them.
They're not governed by the city, so they're not of service.
Possibly. But keep that in the back of your mind. Just keep the word client back there. When they become a client of yours, you could say, that's when you could abandon them as well. You don't abandon your clients, do you? They abandon you, and that's the refusal, right? We talked about withdrawing consent and things. You don't want to be in an abandonment case. Assault and battery, we just in general conversation use those terms interchangeably. And oftentimes, if I'm going to batter you, I've probably also assaulted you. But by legal definition, assault is, I'm about to and then battery is, I just did it. Okay? So you can draw a line there if you want to, but we use those terms pretty much interchangeably. If you threaten to cause harm, that's assault. If you cause the harm physically, that's battery. Everything cool with that?
So what do you do in a situation with a psych patient?
Run.
Crazy person.
Run.
Getting hold.
I'm going to say this. Bear with me. It's kind of been a change in paradigm for myself. As a young EMT, I would engage in that physical altercation because that patient needed me. As I've gotten older and gotten thrown around a little bit, I was like, well, maybe I didn't need to engage in that altercation. And then I go back, keep it simple, stupid. You ever heard of the KISS principle? Keep it simple, stupid. That's the KISS principle. And oftentimes that's the best way to run or to work. My grandfather told me one time, I thought we had a sick calf. He had some cows and he had a calf, and I thought the calf was sick. And I said, hey, Grandpa, you think that calf's sick? He said, well, he doesn't feel good. I said, I think we should give him a shot of antibiotics, don't you? And he's like, if you think so. The old man wisdom was about to hit me. So I went and got the medicine. I felt good about this, and I went out there. And he said, I guess we need to catch it. And this calf ran and ran and ran. And I'm like, we can't catch it. And he said, you really think it was sick enough to need the shot? I kind of apply that to some of these patients, that we tend to engage in them because we think we should. And I'm like, hey, if you're in there is nothing I can do for you except maybe cause harm if I do engage with you, harm to myself or harm to you. But if you're physically well enough to fight me, it's not a medical emergency. Now, it may be a psychiatric emergency, and I'm not going to allow you to do self-harm or go do things like you think you can fly from one building to the other or jump in and stop a semi. I'm not going to allow that, but I'm not going to engage with you. And that's a great question. That's a great topic. How do we, and we'll talk more about that when we deal with our psych patients individually, but I'm not engaging. I'm not engaging. There are too many cameras on things anymore, body cameras with police officers, and there are some paramedics who are wearing body cameras. And that stuff gets out there, and we could show you some videos, I could show you some videos, and you may have already seen them where, you go in there and this guy's in distress, but the paramedic's not doing anything because they think he's just drunk. And he ends up dying before they get him in the ambulance. And they treat him terrible. I'm not saying that. But I'm also saying I'm not going to fight somebody who is mentally off. Whether that's by, in a true psychiatric condition that they suffer from, or whether that's under the influence of stuff like LSD or PCP or we'll talk more about that. We'll talk more about that, but how to manage those kind of patients. I'll preface it by saying that some of my overdosed patients that are taking K-trips or sedated on narcotics, those are the easiest to manage. They don't fight. They're chilled. They're super chill. Can I throw a funny? Can I throw a funny at you? This is recent developments in EMS. It's recent developments in EMS because my home state now allows medical use of THC. Well, dispensaries are everywhere. I didn't make this call, but they were telling me about it. Up in Durant, they went and got this guy named Mark. Mark had got into the edibles. This is when it first became a deal. He got the whole bag of gummies, and he treated those like true gummies and ate the whole bag. Oh, hell. Right? Oh, hell. Ate the whole bag. Now, I'm not a connoisseur of that stuff, so I'm kind of not familiar with the dosing or anything like that. That's not a drug I've studied by dosing. But I think they tell you like to start with a half or something and see what happens after 30 minutes before you try any more. And don't do anything else like alcohol or any other drugs. He ate the bag in one setting. Just sitting there eating gummies, watching TV. Somebody found him and he's locked. He's locked. Paramedics get there to look at him and they say, "Hey, Mark, what's going on? How old are you? What have you done?" Nothing. No response. He's not A&O times 4, is he? But he's awake. And he's stable. His vital signs are good. Implied consent. They take him to the hospital. Now remember, this is when this stuff first came out and it created a new issue for EMS people. When I say first came out, first became legal for medicinal use. So they take him to the ER. About a 10 or 15, 20 minute time frame here. They get him over in the ER bit and he goes, 28. What's 28? Oh, we asked him how old he was. That's how much time delay there was in his response. What do we do for him? Nothing. What are you going to do for him? Let it wear off.
Get the snacks ready.
Let it wear off. Get the snacks ready. Yeah, hide the Twinkies. This guy's going to eat here in a minute. What do you do? But as EMS people, we feel like we should do something, right? We got called. Should I start an IV on him? Should I give him some medication? Should I give him an antidote? Not that there is. Time. That's what we need to prescribe, time. No different than somebody getting all jacked up on monsters, staying up cramming for a test all night, and you make the call because they're extreme tachycardic and their heart's racing. Oh my God, the heart's racing. I've got drugs that will slow that heart down. Is that what I need to do? What do they need? A prescription of time. Let the caffeine wear off out of their body and get some sleep. Go back to your psych patient. What do we need to do for you? I don't have that tool. I'll just keep you from harming yourself or anybody else until we get the right resources there. Don't fight. If your patient is well enough to fight you, they probably don't need you. Back to the old chase the calf adage. That help? That help? I do believe in self-defense. So if you get somebody who becomes violent in an ambulance, that's when you could start restraining them, and we'll talk more about that.
Take like self-defense classes?
If you were to help.
Yeah, they make us
That's what it was.
Just how to get out of the situation.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Yeah.
not get choked out.
Yeah.
Well, we have a psych unit, so it's kind of different.
Yeah. Psych calls are hard. They are really, really hard, and they're common.
So we had this guy who was fighting us. He came to the ER for chest pain. He was having withdrawals because he was a user. And the nurse needed to go give him heparin because he had some kind of block.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyways, his troponins were just going up. He was climbing. Well, he ripped his IV out, started yelling at the nurse. We all went in there, started holding him down, fighting him and everything. We finally got him hooked up to the monitor, and we intubated him and everything because he was just fighting us so much. We intubated him.
Sedate him.
Yeah.
Take him down.
We took him down. Well, we got hooked up to the monitor, and he was SVT 210.
Crazy,
Wow.
isn't it?
So
They need intervention.
Right.
They need intervention. But you need help performing that intervention too, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're out here by yourself, like I think what you were kind of getting at, you and your buddy are out here and you got this guy. It wasn't two of you. It wasn't one of you.
It was like 8 of us.
And it wasn't only that.
We had security there, too, and even
And it wasn't only that. What was the magic ingredient here? Drugs.
withdrawal.
Drugs. He needed, it's called chemical restraint. Let's put him somewhere else.
I've never seen somebody that strong before.
It's amazing.
Big guy. He was smaller than you.
And then you think about people who are taking these trips on LSD and stuff, and that's one of the encounters I had. We had OHP. There was one on each arm. They were being thrown around in the sand. It's like, why? For what benefit? More harm is being caused by our interaction. Well, he wrecked his bike, though, and he's probably got a head injury. Head injuries can cause you to be combative. Drugs. And you don't have them as an EMT.
If they're being combative when you're on scene, can't you just call the police department and they give you immediate?
Let me tell you a little funny here, a little piece of old man wisdom. I love police officers. I'm really cautious about calling them to the scene. I better need them. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like, dude, I was kind of getting along with you till you called that guy in here. And now we got a problem. I don't trust you anymore.
But if like you seriously know they need help, they
Yes,
got some
yes,
type of problem.
absolutely. Yes. If I'm going down the restraint road, police officers sound like a good option, but what are they going to do? If they restrain them, now they're in their custody, and now they're going to transport them for medical clearance. And I've created a whole new situation. That police they can't be handcuffed in my ambulance without that police officer. People are dying because of this stuff. The way we at large, not me or you individually, but just the way the society restrains some of these people, they end up dying. You just don't want to be that statistic. It's tough. I can't give you an answer that says this is what you do every time. It's common sense. It's resource allocation appropriately. But someone said one time, and it always stuck with me, dispatch says there's no guns on scene. Then the cops get there. Now we have guns on scene. Just because the police officers arrive doesn't make the scene safe. And I hate that in our training, because oftentimes we have these little mini scenarios over here in these rooms, and you're like, okay, I'm going to get police on scene, and now I can go in and enter. That's, guys, this is not hidden from you in society today. It's not hidden from you in the news. You look at the news. Look at the news. Look at that school down there where the police officers got just dragged over the coals because of their response inside that building. That still wasn't a safe scene, and there were officers in the hallway. Does that make sense? Can I just say that, not to go too far forward? There is no safe scene. I don't care what it is. If you're driving down the road in an ambulance, it's not safe, is it? The risk-benefit analysis. Never say the scene is safe. Never say the scene is safe. In response, while on scene, while driving back to the station to go park your butt back in the recliner. If you're out, it's not safe. Some safer than others, some more dangerous than others, but it's not safe. Don't let your guard down when it comes to that. Great question. Thank you for doing that. On a lighter note, if I start an IV on someone without their consent, have I committed battery? Yes, I have. I've caused physical harm without your consent. Technically, I've committed battery, and they could go at you. If I'm moving a stroke patient through a doorway on the stretcher and they're paralyzed on one side, and that arm gets caught on the door and it rips their thin skin, have I committed battery? No. Have I caused harm? Yeah. Was it intentional? Could it happen? I'll be honest. I've lowered the guardrail on a stretcher so I could get access to the patient's arm and start the IV, and then fold the guardrail back up. But sometimes when they got a lot of hanging skin behind their arm, I've pinched it in there before. Feel bad, feel terrible. It's just, stuff's going to happen. And you just got to be really, really aware of not causing harm to your patient, because they are your client. Document, report, apologize. Do all the things that you think you should do to those patients. False imprisonment, taking someone against their will, holding someone against their will. Psych patients make that really difficult, because unless they're under emergency detention, they're still not, nobody's responsible for them but them. So just taking someone without permission or without a legal course is called kidnapping or false imprisonment. Be careful with that one too. And then we don't really get into this too much. I think you would get into slander and libel, a defamation issue, probably with social media or talking to the media. If you go to work for an agency, you should have a person designated who talks to the media. An example of this would be, there's been a major car accident at an intersection. It seems like there's a car accident at that intersection all the time. And there's news on scene, and they walk up to you and go, "What's going on with these car accidents at this intersection? You seem to be here a lot." And you go, "Yeah, we're here all the time because that stupid county commissioner won't do anything about this." Or the mayor's too cheap to spend the resources to put a stoplight here. See where you get in trouble with that? Or you could even make it worse and be like some people on social media is like, if he was more interested in fixing the city instead of all of his girlfriends. Are you with me? I'm not on social media, but my wife is, and she'll report that stuff to me sometimes, like, "You're not going to believe what they said." I'm like, bravery behind a keyboard People say stuff with that keyboard that they will not say face-to-face. Why? Because they'd get punched. Leave social media alone when in the aspect of your job. Please, please, please. That's where you're going to get in trouble with that. Transfer of care, we've already talked about that. Equal or better training to avoid charges of abandonment. Be very, very careful with that. In police world, we pick up evidence and we have a chain of custody with that evidence. You know, where's the evidence now? Did the chain get broken? Treat your patients that way too. I have them, now he had them, now she has them, now the doctor has them. Otherwise, you've abandoned them. So that may be another way to keep yourself out of trouble. Just remember, keep the chain of custody. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this confidentiality. We have some laws that protect the patient and their information. And there's an abbreviation there, Jordan. It's PHI, Protected Health Information. So maybe a new term alert. PHI, Protected Health Information. That falls under the HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. When you go to work for a department, you will have to take HIPAA training and probably have to take it yearly. It's common sense, people. It's common sense. But we get lax with it and we need reminders. Hey, you can't do that. You can't leave something on the counter that everybody else could see, like a run ticket. You can't get on social media and say, we transported Joe Smith to the hospital last night with chest pain. I saw a local firefighter paramedics post on social media who took a picture of the dispatch screen or some computer terminal screen, and it had patient's name and address and phone numbers and said, we got a busy night. And it's like, you idiot. He put it on social media. Busy night at the station. Oh, you just need a couple of identifiers. 48-year-old male, 228 Elm Street. You could probably piece that together and figure out who that is, right? You just can't be saying this stuff. Keep it confidential. I'm sorry?
What's PHI again?
Protected Health Information. You can kind of pick up on this if you read news articles that involve EMS or patients. They'll say, 2 patients transported from the scene. You can't get anything out of that. You can't get any identifiers out of that, can you? 2 male patients. Why do they have to be identified as male? It's just 2 patients, right? Names have not been released pending notification of next of kin. Oh, yeah, but Susie over here on the ambulance just did. I was in a convenience store one day. Street closed, nobody knew who I was. Guy in the uniform, right? Got it all going on. Ambulance sitting out in the drive, getting him one of those meals out of the hot box, going, look at that car wreck we had this morning. Look at that guy's head. I'm like, oh my God. Some people say it's a tool of the devil. Could be. You can get your butt in trouble. Leave that stuff alone. Now, there are some instances where you can give that information, and I'm going to leave that to your department policy. Nothing I say in here supersedes your department policies, but if you have to release the information to transfer the care to someone else, like telling the doctor what you saw on scene and what's going on with this patient, what medications they take, that is not a HIPAA violation. That needs to be said to transfer the care, right? And then if you get a court order to release the information. But it can also go to insurance companies, and it can also go to researchers, as long as that research has been approved and stuff like that. So when in doubt, contact your supervisors or your department policy when you're asked to release some information. keep thy mouth shut. You ever heard the old adage, it's better to let the world think you are a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt? I thought you were an idiot, but you just proved it, right? I kind of knew you were probably going to say something stupid. And I just talked about that. Sometimes you need to release the information, and that's what I said. There's the HIPAA. I'm going to skip through some slides here for a minute. Talk about COBRA and EMTALA. You're going to hear these acronyms thrown out. If you haven't figured it out so far with 1 week at EMT school, we make a lot of words with a lot of abbreviations. I've had students leave because of that. Well, I can't deal with that. Too many abbreviations. So COBRA and EMTALA, I'm not going to spend a lot of time with that. Once again, that's a department policy. You can look this up on your own. It just basically comes down to the fact that you can't deny someone treatment. If you ever walk into a hospital and see that poster at the very front door entrance that says, if you're here, we'll treat you. There is this issue of diversion. It's not in the slides, probably not in the textbook, but it's part of the business. Issue of diversion. You're transporting a patient to the hospital and they say, you can't bring them here, we're on divert. That has kind of settled away. I don't hear issues with that so much anymore. But when a hospital is swamped, they're really busy in the ER, they say, should we go on divert? It's not as easy as just somebody's determining that. True diversion is the CEO of the hospital makes a public statement that says this hospital cannot accept any more patients. That's true diversion. But you're going to run into people when you walk in the ER who says, why did you bring them here? So let's talk about transport decisions for a moment. What I know, what I think I know. Where do you take patients? I know hospitals, but.
The closest.
The what?
The closest accepting facility.
The closest accepting facility?
Excuse me, not accepting, wrong word.
Appropriate?
Closest appropriate.
Closest appropriate facility. Now, I'm going to beat up on TMC just for a moment. Not really, but they're close and I can use them, right? TMC is a level 3 trauma center. It is a certified primary stroke care center. It is a accredited chest pain center. And then I'm going to use TMC Bonham, or the Bonham Hospital, which is not a primary or comprehensive stroke center. So if I've got a patient who is having a stroke and I'm sitting in between these hospitals, which one am I going to go to? TMC Denison, because why? It's the nearest appropriate facility. The patient will get the care they need the fastest. If you're TMC and you've got patients waiting in the hallway to go into the CAT scanner, the CT scanner for strokes, and you just brought me another one, yeah, it's burdening, it's putting a toll, but that's where they need to be. That's where they need to be. And you'll get some pushback on that every now and then. It's like, why did you bring them here when Wilson & Jones is also a stroke center? Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. Does patient choice have anything to do with this? It has a factor. Does where their primary care physician is associated, does that have a factor?
Depends on severity.
It just depends on what the call is about. But it's a factor that we consider. What if you take someone to a hospital who can't handle it because they're close and you want to get back and finish the Super Bowl? You were watching the Super Bowl and you got a call and you're like, I can go all the way over here to the appropriate facility, or I can take them to this hospital and get back to the game. Or it's 3 in the morning and I don't feel like an hour transport. Are you wrong? You are wrong. But you probably, I don't know how much trouble, it's just going to be dependent. But you're wrong. because you're delaying that patient's care. So the mantra of this entire EMS, if you want to know what is EMS, I will bring you care that you need, or I will get you the care that you need. Simple, isn't it? I'll either provide the care you need, or I will get you the care you need. New word alert, that's called definitive care. Definitive care is the care that will put you back in the state you were before you got sick or injured. That's definitive. That's the final care. It's what you need. If I've got a chest pain patient, somebody brought up chest pain patient, I'm in the ambulance, I can assist him with nitro, I might give him some oxygen, blah, 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 maybe an aspirin or two, but he needs the cath lab. So it's an intermediate stabilization that I'm providing, but I'm getting him to what kind of care? Definitive care. If I go to bottom with no cath lab, am I doing him right? No. Okay.
What was the difference?
Definitive care, it's my definition, so it's probably not a Webster or a Wikipedia, even though I could put it in Wikipedia, couldn't I? Yeah, I can go and I can edit it. It's the care that the patient's going to get that will put them in the state that they were before they were sick or injured. You can probably condense that and use less words, but when we shift gears here and talk about wellness and well-being of us, we really want our medical system to provide care that is better than definitive. Sometimes I don't want to return the patient to the state in which they were before they called me. I want them to even be better than they were before they called me. And that's a new paradigm that we're not even into yet. So that's what Cobra and EMTALA does for you. We'll touch on organ donation just a little bit. We'll get into this a little bit later when we talk about resuscitation. We do have a role in organ donation, and primarily our role is in identification of it. And we may get some medical direction. It's kind of rare, but we may get some medical direction on how to best preserve the body for organ donations. You don't hear this discussed much because it's just another thing we have to be aware of, but I can't not bring it up to you. If somebody on scene says, hey, they're an organ donor, or whatever the case may be, please relay that information to the terminal facility, okay? You may make a transfer of an organ donation candidate, things like that. It's a gruesome topic, and it's not a pleasant thing to discuss, but kind of be aware of it. I mean, there's some good kidneys there, right? And somebody needs them, and they're about to be cremated or embalmed. I know it's horrible to talk about. That's why the doors are closed. It's just part of this business. We talked about medical alert and tattoos and things like that. We're going to do an entire CPR class. We're going to do an entire lecture on resuscitation of the near dead. The near dead. We don't resuscitate dead people, okay? We don't work on dead people. Dead is a definition, legal definition. If someone's in cardiac arrest and not breathing and they have no pulse, outside of circumstances, I'm going to work on them. They're not dead yet. They just don't have a pulse or respiration. Now, if you ask John Q. Susie, are they dead? Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, they're not breathing. Some people's definition of death is they're not breathing. Well, you can overdose on narcotics and still be alive and not breathe. Not for long. You with me on that? I need you to burn in your brain right now. We do not attempt resuscitation on dead people. We resuscitate near-death people. Sometimes I think in this business we attempt resuscitation on dead people when we shouldn't. We'll talk more as that goes along, okay? But death is a legal definition. You want me to provide an example? Okay. Do you remember John F. Kennedy? Or at least your history brings him up, right? I wasn't alive when he was assassinated. Close. That's how old I am. Close. When did John F. Kennedy die? And you can give me a date. November, was it 23rd, 1963? Somewhere in there. He was up for re-election. He was up to go up to vote again. Anyway, when did he die? Well, you give me the date and time, can't you? Tell me when that was, outside of date or time.
As soon as that bullet hit his brain.
Thank you. But that's not what's on the death certificate. It gets a little more involved. They attempt resuscitation on him at Parkland Hospital. As a matter of fact, even the room was disassembled after that, and that's in the National Archives now. It's kind of a cool piece of trivia, right? That emergency room was broken down, boxed up, and put in the National Archives. Anyway, they attempted resuscitation on him. The doctor looks at the clock on the wall and says, time of death, blah, blah, blah. His wife, Jackie, said, not yet. What? He's Catholic. He needs last rites. I need a priest in here. Do not stamp time of death until he gets last rites. So the priest came in and does what the priest does. Now you can say time of death. And that was a later movement of the clock. But when did he die? In my world, when did he die?
Bullet in his brain.
Yeah, when the cavitation wave went through his cerebral cortex. Right? The death thing is a touchy subject, and we'll spend a considerable amount of time on that. Right now we're in the legal chapter. Just realize that even death has a legal component. Okay? And then I'll go through this when we get to that situation. Does anyone have any questions as we try to sum up this? I'm not skipping over it for any other reason that we're going to address it in detail at a later time. We'll talk about crime scenes. I'll probably have a police officer come in here and talk to you about how to manage a crime scene, how to preserve evidence and stuff like that. So it would do a disservice for me just to rush through it here.
We were talking about time of death.
Uh-huh.
What if you come to a call, like a welfare check, and they've been dead for like 6 days? What's the time of death on that?
That's when you show up.
Would you leave that up to the?
Yeah, you leave it up to the ME or the JP. In Texas, you just as the piece can sign the document, but they're doing it off of your word. There's this saying in our business that EMTs and paramedics do not pronounce someone dead. It's just like we don't diagnose. Bull, we diagnose. If we don't diagnose, we don't know which page to turn to in the protocol, right? We don't know what medication to pull up. We don't know what care to render if we're not diagnosing. Got a whole chapter on that. It's like the time of death or pronouncing death. I may not sign the document called death certificate. That's what the JP's signing. That's what the medical directors or medical examiner is signing. But I sure said, we're not going to resuscitate this person because they've been dead for 6 days. And we just timestamp it there for my use. I'm not putting the official time on the official death certificate. I'm putting the time that I pronounced or stated no resuscitation attempt, patient was in state of decomposition. And all my times will be there. That clarify for you? I don't have to worry about the death certificate time of death. And I don't even know that they will put it on there unless it's a special case where there was an autopsy and they had to kind of backtrack, and they can use chemical analysis of the blood and the decomposition. That's a crime scene investigation or a death investigation or an autopsy. I don't have to go there. I just simply state, arrived on scene at 14:55, found a man in approximately 68, if you know the age, great, 68-year-old male patient lying supine in bed in obvious states of decomposition. It's enough. That's why I didn't work on him. I don't have to go get a heart monitor and put it on him to find asystole to say, he's dead now. I confirmed it with an EKG. The blowflies and maggots probably confirmed it. Let's be real, right? I don't need an EKG to show me a flat line when the head and body are separated. That's injury non-compatible with life. Guys, I have held the pulse. Can I touch you? How am I going to say it? I was going to say, you want to make out? Had to liven it up every now and then, right? This course is too serious not to have fun every now and then.
Edit that one out.
Yeah. So I feel the pulse, but I look at the patient's head, and it was involved in a rollover, and the head was partially thrown from the vehicle, and the vehicle rolled over on the head, and the head is flat now, and there's gray matter running down the front of his shirt, brain, but I feel a pulse. I'm not going to rush treatment. Okay? I'm not going to go get a C-collar and a backboard and put him in the ambulance and let's go fast to the hospital because he's almost dead. He can have a pulse and be dead. Right? We have artificial hearts now that people are walking around with, and they'll still run and pump blood, but you may be gone. The presence of a pulse doesn't mean you're alive. This is getting weird. This is getting weird. The heart just hasn't gotten the message that he's dead. Oh, okay. Sure, if you say so. Why? Because the injury is what? Incompatible with life. The body just hasn't caught up with that yet. How many people do you think would grab that patient though and rush to the hospital because he did have a pulse? Mm-hmm. It is. That whole trauma resuscitation. That's why we have an entire chapter for it. So, with that being said, let's move forward. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to pull out your food diary. Shifting of the gears here. Before I really get worked up, this is one of my favorite lectures. My favorite topic is cardiology. It's my favorite topic to lecture on is cardiology. But my most passionate lecture is this one. Probably because I'm an old man. And I am so thankful that to some degree I did what in the past? Put the work in. I attribute being relatively healthy, whatever that means. I'm a 55-year-old male, and when I go to the eye doctor, dentist, my doctor, and they quiz you, are you taking any medicine? Are you doing this? You know, I'm no allergies, no medications, and they look at me like, you don't take any medicine? I'm like, you're my doctor. You would know, wouldn't you? Yeah, but I thought maybe you went to another doctor and got some medications. No, I just see you, and I don't want to. What's your health goal for the year? Not to see you. Does that make sense? And so I judge that as relatively healthy. Could I be healthier? We all could. We all could. But could I be unhealthier? Oh, for sure. For sure. That's why we're all here. That's why we have enrollment in this program. It's because the 4 horsemen catch people. And we go try to fix them, and we can't. Now, over 90% of what we do in this business is due to lifestyle choice. The other 10% is just bad luck. Whether it's bad genetic luck or bad luck crossing the street or being wrong place, wrong time, those are the calls we actually live for, as a matter of fact. We like the unexpected call. We don't like the calls where someone's having trouble breathing and you get there and they still have a cigarette in their mouth and they've had for 40 years. We can't fix that. We just help them out. You with me? This is going to be a difficult lecture for me in the aspect that the average age in this class is 18 and the 4 horsemen haven't hit you. I'm 55 years old and the 4 horsemen are chasing me. They haven't caught me yet. What did I say? Yet. I'm holding them off as long as I possibly can. And the older I get, the more important that is. The faster I have to run, and the faster they run. They're going to catch me. One of them will probably catch me. They're chasing you too today. They just are really patient. They got time to get you. Does that set the stage for this? Will you promise me at the end of this you will at least think about this for the rest of your life? Let me disclaim something real quick. I am not a physician. The advice I'm going to possibly give you in here today, you take at your own risk. You do you. Well, the advice I'm given is, I hope, backed up with good research. I'm not going to quote the research articles. I'm just telling you the trends. I'm painting a picture. I want you to do your own research. I want you to make your own decisions. I will entertain any question you may have at the end of this or throughout this. Easily entertain it. Love to entertain it. I want you to be as inquisitive as you possibly can. There is nothing more important today than you. And that should go for the rest of your life. You're more important than your wife and your kids. If you have that. You're more important than your mom and dad. And the reason I say that is if you're not well, you can't help them. If you're not well, you can't help them. It's a financial burden to be unhealthy. You can drain bank accounts. You can drain 401ks and retirement accounts just because you're spending so much money in the hospital and trips. Please understand that as we go through this. Disclaimer, good? It's been stated anyway. You've noticed lately that your partner of 2 years has been behaving differently than normal. He is extremely short-tempered with you and patience, been beating the clock by seconds. His appearance is sloppy. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, this PowerPoint kind of goes along this case. Is this a problem? Do you intervene? Is this guy helping you when you work with him? No. He's a burden on you and your patients, and he's unhealthy. He's probably suffering from something called what? Burnout? What's his coping mechanism?
Alcohol.
You think it might be alcohol?
Being lazy.
Being lazy? Do we want to be lazy? Do you think we really want to be lazy? I mean, we know people who are. Coping mechanisms. This statistic I can cite. You are 47% likely to choose a healthy coping mechanism. You are 47% likely to choose an unhealthy coping mechanism. I don't know where that other 6%'s at. And I'm just reading the deal, right? I look at that as a coin toss. If I need to cope with something, I'm just as likely to pick something unhealthy as healthy. You're in a business that really, really gets you down. How many of you looked at the schedule of this business and thought, that's pretty cool. I can work one day and get off two. The traditional old 24, 48 hour thing. document. I only have to go to work like 2.5 days a week if you do the math. Oh, well, let's change that. Let's do a 48-hour continuous shift, and then we'll give you 4 days off. That's the trend we're going to in this business. Most departments now are working 2 days on, 4 days off. Guys, in traditional employment, it's known as a 40-hour work week. The 9 to 5 job, the factory job, 11 to 7, 7 to 11, 7 to 7. I mean, you get your 40 hours and they call it a week, right? Matter of fact, the employment law says if you work over that, it's called overtime, and I got to compensate you for it. You're going to work 48 of them in a row? I can't look at the 4 off yet, okay? I got to get through these 2. I don't like the concept of 48-96. Well, I never had it. When I worked 48, what happened? If I worked a 48-hour shift, what happened to me in that traditional schedule? I only got 1 day off and I was right back. Did that take a toll on me? Absolutely. Did I almost lose my marriage over it? Absolutely. Did my kids not see me during important events in their life? Christmas, Thanksgiving, holidays, birthdays, ball games, graduation, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, why? Because you're on shift. And I got mandatory for another 24 hours. Where are you eating? Wherever I can. Snack rooms at the hospital. Fill it with fuel at the quick check and get something out of the box. Go to the station and eat what they've got in there. And it's like, when do you eat it? I don't know. When do you sleep? Don't sleep. You would be amazed at the number of firefighter paramedics out there today. I'm talking about men here who have no testosterone. None. Like it's off the chart low. Sleep. You can drop your testosterone 50% just by losing a night's sleep. You told me the other day I'm always tired. I mean, I'm not going to pick on you, but, and I'm not saying you have low testosterone. I'm just saying, that's not something we want to say, is it? I'm always tired. How many of you look at the 24-48 schedule or the 48-96 schedule and go, I can do some other stuff on those 2 days? Most of us fall into the trap of getting a second side job. And we sure don't get any sleep there. Those days are spent for you to recover, and a lot of times we don't take them into recovery. We just do something else because I got the time to do it. You're set up for failure in your mental health. This is why I was so heavy on the resilience the other day. We'll get into coping later. If I'm just as likely to take an unhealthy coping mechanism as a healthy one, I have to be aware of what I'm doing in response to stressors. You good with that? My biggest personal push in that is you can't do any of the above until the body has the nutrients and the ingredients it needs internally. You don't go, I'm not talking about medications for mental health in a dark concept, but studies have indicated the antidepressants aren't working. Because you can easily say, when did you get off of them? You've been on them for 5 years. When did they stop? When does it fix this? It's not fixing it. If you've got to take them forever, it's not fixing it, is it? Apparently you're still depressed. Or you just stopped them. Am I out of line with that? Is that an unreal statement? Is that what this partner needs? Prozac? I am not saying that those medications can't help somebody during times of extreme stressors. Did a 6-month stint on them myself years ago. But I sure wanted off of them as quickly as possible. And I knew that wasn't the fix. That was a coping mechanism. That was a medication to help me get through what I needed to get through. So my point of all of this today, my underlying point is, if I feed the body what it needs, all that other stuff will help exponentially. It will better help than not. You with me on that? Is alcohol an unhealthy coping mechanism?
Excessive.
If I'm drinking because I'm stressed, does that sound right? I mean, our gut reaction is like, no, don't drink. If you got a problem, drinking's not the cure. It's not. But some antidepressant medication is? Are they both foreign substances in the body? There's some argument there. There's some debate there. No, it's not good. It makes you make bad choices. But what are choices what I made if I wasn't chilled out from alcohol? You got to kind of consider that, I think. Not to talk about, not to leave out the physical toll that the job takes on your body. You go from 0 to 100. You lift things that you can't lift properly. You lift people out of bathtubs and out of cars and out of ditches and out of drainage canals, out of confined spaces. You drag people that are 4 times their ideal body mass. You twist them when you turn with them. You know what our solutions are in EMS? Let's get a mechanical stretcher. Let's get a battery-operated cot. That's great for loading them in the ambulance. That doesn't do anything to get them out of the bathtub. That doesn't do anything to get them off the 2nd floor of a building. That doesn't do anything when I have to call the engine crew in to help lift this patient on a tarp that we actually name a mega mover. That is the brand name of the tarp. How would you like to be lying at home and the guy say, I gotta go get the mega mover to get you out? At some point you should go, maybe I should do something about this issue. And I am biased and I am rude and I admit that. I am not sensitive. I'm not sensitive when I've struggled to get people through a doorway and look in the corner of their bedroom and there are literally cases like you would see at Sam's Club of Hostess cupcakes. I'm sorry. Is morbid obesity a disease? What other disease have we glamorized?
Being fat.
That's my point. If you're saying it's a disease, what other disease has been on the front of People magazine? Glamorized.
Anorexia?
It's some other stuff, but I'm saying something you just called a disease. Is obesity a disease process? Yes, the 4 horsemen. Remember I had you do that assignment? Let's clarify what those are right quick. Cardiovascular disease. Metabolic disorders. Neurological. Cancer. Do all of those have a very large correlation to obesity? The answer is absolutely yes, with undeniable research. Duh research. We call it duh research. Duh research means, well, you really had to spend money on a research for that? Ten people interviewed following a game of Russian roulette stated Russian roulette was safe. You know the game Russian roulette? 10 people interviewed said the game was safe. You with me on that? You see the contradiction in that? You can't interview the ones that it killed. Statistics don't lie, liars use statistics. People who want to manipulate use statistics. Those 4 horsemen are related to what you're putting in your mouth. No doubt about it. And that's healthcare in the United States today. Westernized societies. You go to a third world country, you go to people on this planet who live in tribal conditions where they hunt and chase their game and their food. And there's no medicine there as we know medicine. Their medicine may be a shaman, a spiritual leader, the old wise man in the robe. 4 horsemen aren't there. You ever heard of diverticulitis, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, and all those diseases of the gut? They do not exist in third world countries. The United States is leading the world in maternal death. That means pregnant women. Leads the world in maternal issues. Women used to go to the hospital to have a baby in case something went wrong. Now they go to the hospital because they have to have the baby there because something is wrong. That's a 30-year shift. In 30 years, that shift has occurred. Now pregnancy, if you can even get pregnant, 50% of couples out there today are having trouble conceiving. Used to be the woman's issue, right? Now she got irregular periods, her ovaries didn't form right, her uterus is tilted. Now it's no. Not to be gross, not to be graphic, not to sexualize any of this, but the average genital size in males today is measurably less each generation. Smaller testicles, less testosterone. It's terrible. It's terrible. Infertility. IVF, in vitro fertilization, is a pretty common way to get pregnant. It used to be really this rare case. Now it's like, no, that's how we're going to have to do it. And I know people who have borrowed $35,000 and $40,000 to see if they could get an egg to be fertilized in a lab. And then when they get an ejaculate from the hope-to-be father, they look in the ejaculate, 6 sperm. And I'm not exaggerating. You got 6 in there. We can find 6. Not 60,000 in a sample, 6. And we're going to pick one of those 6 and see if it'll fertilize this egg. Okay. Maybe we could get 2 out of it, and maybe we got to increase our odds of success. This is the conditions that the country is in right now. This may be the condition that you or somebody you know is in right now. And we're not helping it because of the business that we're in, with the lack of sleep, the poor nutrition, the lifestyle, the lifting, the moving, and all that, and the coping mechanisms to deal with the stressors that we encounter. This is a tough business, y'all. There's some of it you can't control, but there's a lot of it you can. And if I can't control when the tornado's coming, but I can build a storm shelter. I can build a contingency. You with me? And that's what you got to do in your body. How well can you handle a car accident today where you get trauma to your body? Does a young, healthy person withstand that trauma better than the equal trauma applied to a 60-year-old obese person who has cardiovascular disease? Who's going to survive the trauma better? Well, obviously the young person. Why? They're more resilient. You don't have to be young to be resilient. You can be old. But I'm telling you today, at 18 years old, the choices you're making are going to affect the ones at 30 and 40 and 50 and 60 and 70 and 80. I noticed when you come up with the 4 horsemen, some of you cited your resource, and that's awesome. I took the 4 horsemen thing from Dr. Peter Attia. He seems to be really emerging as one of the leading physicians on longevity. He really studies longevity because he's getting old and he wants to live longer. He's got an exercise he does with his patients. It's called I'll state it another way. It's the terminal decathlon. It's like, what do you want to be able to do in your terminal decade? All of us have a terminal decade. You know what the terminal decade is? Well, let's just take the time you die and back up 10 years. If I died today, my terminal decade would be 45 to 55. You with me? Everybody's going to have a terminal decade. What do you want to do in that terminal decade? And he's got a checklist. Do you want to crawl on the floor with grandkids? Do you want to skateboard? Do you want to water ski? Do you want to go to the mountains? Do you want to hunt? Do you want to fish? Just a whole laundry list of things that you want to be able to physically do. And then he turns around and asks you, how well do you do those now? How well do you do those now? If we are going to decline as we age, I am not nearly as flexible, as strong, have the strength I had when in my 30s or my 20s. I'll say this, right now, you're probably at the best you'll ever be. I'm talking to you. If nothing else changes, you're at the best you'll ever be. Science, life, that's called lifespan. You're at your prime. You're the best you'll ever be. Do you want to be how you feel today at 60? Well, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? Well, you're going to have to put the work in. You're going to have to put the work in. Any comments? Questions so far? This is the main slide that I wanted out of this PowerPoint. It's the only reason I really put this PowerPoint up today, is for this graph right here. We'll go through this a little bit and we'll take a break, and I want you to chew on it during break. And then we're going to come back in and we're going to talk about some things, okay? Look at this graph for a moment. I need to pick on people I don't know their names yet. I'm going to know your name as soon as I call on you, or as soon as you say it. Christian. What's that bottom line say? Read that bottom line for me, Christian.
Life expectancy in the U.S. 78 years.
78 years. How'd they get that?
The averages in between male and female.
It's an average, isn't it? They get the obituaries out and they average up 100 of them, and they'll always come out to 78. You can go right now and get, no you can't. You're lying, Brandon. Where the hell do you find obituaries now? Anybody have an idea?
Online or in the newspaper.
What's a newspaper? I can remember having a newspaper, going to obituaries like, Joe died. Boy, he lived a good life. Or you look at it and go, they were only 32. Anyway, you could take 100 obituaries and average it up and you're going to get 78. Luke, that's your answer. Well, I'm 55. Anybody want to do that math? I really don't want you to, but let's see. If it was 75 and 55, that's 20 years. 3 more, 23 years. I got 23 years left. I've got less than your lifetime left. According to what? Statistics. 66 of them are healthy. This is a little dated. That's probably should say 56 now. And I base that up on the number of patients in their 50s who have medical conditions that require medications. Okay? Either way, you take a 55 to 60-year-old person, they're done. They're out of the health, right? They're out of the health. And what are they in? Impaired. Another way of saying this is lifespan. This is health span. I don't care if I live to be 120 if I was sick at 50. Those 70 years being in a wheelchair and incapacitated in bed, I'm going to be graphic here for just a moment if you don't mind. I had this conversation this morning. I went into a nursing home one day, and an old man laying there in bed, and he was still coherent. And I said, "What's up, young man?" He said, "I'm not young." I know. "How are you doing today?" "Same I was yesterday." "What's going on?" "See that stuff hanging up there?" And it was the nutrition in the bag. It's called Ensure. This concoction of formula that they pump in their stomach so they have nutrition. He said, "I take that," and he points to the colostomy bag he's got on his side. He said, "I take that and turn it into that. That's my life. I take that white stuff and turn it into this nasty brown stuff." The colostomy bag is the poop bag, because he's had some type of GI thing where he has to poop out the side of his abdomen now into a bag. Guys, forewarning, those stink like no other. You want to see Brandon vomit? Let one of those fall on the nursing home floor and me roll you over. I will blow it all over you. Can't help it.
You ready to burp one?
No, I will not. That's why I'm not a nurse. I will throw up in the shrubs in the front of the nursing home from a colostomy bag. I'm going to give you another little hint. If you've ever got a bad smell that's making you hurl, don't leave it if you got to go back to it, because you'll start the process all over again. There is olfactory fatigue. You'll get used to it, I guess. I always run and come back. It was like never learn from my mistakes. All I'm doing is taking the white stuff and making this brown stuff. What kind of life is that? Is that health span? No, and that's not what I want. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for longevity. I'm looking for health span. Here's where it gets a little controversial, and you're going to have to excuse me here for a little bit. All retirement plans, your fire department retirement plan, Social Security retirement plan, your life insurance. Do you know when you apply for life insurance, they look at your medical history and can tell you how long you're going to live? They can tell you almost to the month when you're going to die. That's how good those statisticians are. They can look at your medical history when you apply for life insurance, and they know when you're going to die to the month. So what do? They give it over to the financial gurus and say, run the numbers. How much is it going to cost him? If life insurance companies are doing that, and you think Social Security is doing that, do you think your actuary at your fire department on your retirement plan is doing that? They know when you're going to die. Are there outliers? Are there people who bust the statistics? Absolutely. Both directions. Some will die younger. Payments stop. Some will live longer. Payments must continue. So if you outlive this, just say you're 98 and Social Security or your insurance or whatever is still paying you, they're like, how are you still alive? I mean, but it's okay, because someone made a lifestyle choice and died of a heart attack at 40. So we're going to use their money to... Which side do you want to be on? I want to bust the numbers, don't you? You will think about that the closer you get to 55, and guys, it goes fast. It's the fastest. You've heard that from old people all this time. Enjoy it. It goes fast. 21 years up here doing this. And that's just this career. It goes fast. I want to be the person who laughs at the statisticians. You didn't catch me, but the horses are chasing me. Are we cool on that? That sets the stage of what we need to talk about this morning. Do you want to get more than you invested? Of course you do.
Do you fast?
No, I do not. I just eat when I'm hungry. And if you're in a system, then you eat probably when it's lunchtime. Like here, if I'm teaching an afternoon class, I'm going to eat in the break. You know, it's programmed by society. But if I'm not in an avenue of, just, you eat when you're hungry. You get a signal in the brain. There are little things out of your stomach that says, hey, it's time to eat. And you get that signal and you go do it. We'll talk more about that after break. Good question, though. Y'all ready for a break? Okay, let's take a break. Let's come in about 10 or 15, and let's get rolling again, because past 78 and also move this pie chart. There's some here right here that you cannot eliminate the blue, but we can shrink the blue, okay? That's what we're going for. That's what we're going for. You can look at medicine, you can look at the healthcare system in the United States and go, we are living longer than ever before, and that is true. But you can't say we're healthier than we've ever been. Can't say that we're healthier than we've ever been. I want to name some disease processes that did not exist 100 years ago. Type 2 diabetes. How many people today have type 2 diabetes? Well, you can't count it. You can't count it. It is if it was on a graph in math, it would be exponential growth. It's just doing this. That is, new word alert, you need to know this, comorbidity factor. Comorbidity factors are things that help you die. That's a medical definition. What? Morbid means death, right? What helps you die? I think if we would say that to people, they'd go, well, wait a minute. When you opened up the Twinkies, you're helping you, that's helping you die. If it leads to insulin resistance, that's helping you die. Why? Because insulin resistance, that then turns into type 2 diabetes, is a comorbidity factor. I'm going to say this, and I can bet money on it and probably win. Not all the time, but a large majority of the time. If I've got a cardiac patient, they're also a type 2 diabetic. If they're not a type 2 diabetic, they're at least insulin resistant. So this is an optional homework assignment. I hope you do it because you want to know. But I'm throwing it out there as homework, so maybe you'll go out there and do it. I want you to research metabolic syndrome. Now, metabolic syndrome doesn't really get any traction in the physician's office. Metabolic syndrome is a collection of things. Syndromes are collections of things that bother you. 10, 15 years ago, I take a yearly physical. Ever since I've been at the college, I take a yearly physical. Prior to working at the college, I took a yearly physical, and I've stayed with the same PCP or primary care physician my adult life. It's pretty good. We can see trends. He knows me. I know him. We can have good conversations. And we have good conversations about this topic. 10, 15 years ago now, I weighed 30 pounds more. My lab work was looking funny. My blood pressure was kind of like pushing up into that next phase of hypertension. I'd go. He'd say, what are you waiting on? You waiting on me to prescribe you a medication or what? Are you going to take control of this? I'm like, I'm trying, doc. He's like, are you really trying? I'm trying, doc. I'm eating everything you tell me to eat and not the things you don't tell me to eat. I do not eat eggs because you said those were bad for me. Now you got to back up a little bit. Times have changed and people have gotten a hell of a lot smarter, thank goodness. I don't eat the eggs. I eat oatmeal every day. I get lots of grains because you tell me whole grains are good for me. I'm eating the whole grain bread, the whole wheat bread. I'm limiting my red meat. So what do I need to do? And he's like, well, some people are just programmed to get that way. Their cholesterol goes up, their triglycerides go up. And so sometimes you just, that's why we have medications. And if you can't control it with diet, then I'll form the medication. I call it an epiphany. Y'all know what an epiphany is? A moment. I thank this college for having a professional development day that I must mandatory attend. Well, damn, I'd rather teach than go to professional development. And luckily that year, the thinkers of this college actually got something we could use. Instead of playing group games and what color are you, what color do you identify yourself as? They actually had something useful that day. And they said, you can go to this session. And there was a guy there who teaches at Austin College. He's a doctorate. He has a PhD, evolutionary biologist. His name is Dr. George Diggs, D-I-G-G-S. He wrote a book. He wrote a textbook. You could read the textbook. It is an optional course at Austin College for medical majors. People are going to be physicians. Austin College over here in Sherman is known for pre-med. It's an optional course. It's an elective that these soon-to-be physicians can take. That's called, the name of the course, The Hunter-Gatherer Within. He wasn't promoting his book, but he came in here and he talked and he had slides up, and it was kind of like the slides I got going on here, and I'm like, man, I kind of fit that category. I'm going to listen to what this guy says. And he's like, cut out the salad, the salads with the salad dressing. Cut out this. You need to eat this. You need to eat that. And the hunter-gatherer book, the hunter-gatherer within, its concept is 10,000 years ago when we were hunter-gatherers as humans, we had to hunt and gather our food. We don't anymore. Today we have a disease of gluttony. 200 years ago we had a disease of starvation. Nobody's starving now. I would argue that they're starving at the cellular level because the cells do not even know what the hell's coming through the bloodstream. That's what's killing us. Gluttony. Too much food. I saw you guys hitting the snack machines. You hungry? I get it. Don't get me wrong. Do you know that snacks are new? Do you know people 100 years ago didn't snack? The word wasn't even in existence. I'm sure the word was, but the concept of going and dropping a card in a machine and getting something out. Snacks were pushed by the advertising industry, the food industry. They had excess stuff and they didn't know what to do with it. So let's make it salty, easy to eat, non-perishable, readily available, and cheap. And we got a multi-billion-dollar business in snacks. If it comes from a box, you shouldn't eat it. It's real easy. This sounds complicated, but it's real easy. Hunter-gatherers, if I take a man from 10,000 years ago, if I could do that and I drop him into Walmart and say, eat all you want. He's like, there ain't no food in here. He might stumble around the vegetables and or the fruits and I think I saw this thing that looks like an apple one time, but I've heard about these from my ancestors. They said they were growing on this other piece of land. Fruits and vegetables, guys, you stumbled upon those back then. Now we put them in rows and make them really nice and neat and spray them with organophosphate poisons to keep the bugs off of them. And then we spray our wheat to harvest it at a certain time by putting glyphosate on there, which is Roundup. We kill the wheat with Roundup so we can harvest it when the hell we want to, not when it's ready. We didn't eat oatmeal and grains and bread back then. And if you did, you had to gather a whole bunch of wheat as you found it and then go grind it up and put the yeast in it and make bread out of it. We chemically do that now. Don't eat bread. Just don't eat bread. If you want to lose weight right now, one of the biggest things you can do is just cut bread out and it'll just start, you'll see it change. Don't eat processed food. Don't eat anything with an ingredient list. So I'm pointing at you because I don't know your name. Billy. I should know your name because Emily. Well, you read the ingredient list off the snacks that you just pulled up. If you can. I don't know if you're literate enough to read it because you're not a chemical major.
I see it. It's a whole grain blend, rolled oats, rye flakes, enriched flour.
Okay, stop right there. Enriched flour.
Sugar, isn't it?
Will you read your ingredient list? Now, you got something called munchies.
I don't know if I can read that.
I know what the first three ingredients are going to be.
Corn, enriched flour.
There you go.
Wheat flour.
Enriched flour. What's it mean to have flour that's enriched?
Sugar?
Nope. It is a chemical. What?
Does it mean like they're not using part of the grain because it's a lot easier to get rid of some of it?
Folic acid,
Stop.
riboflavin, niacin.
You're reading the ingredients of enriched grain. Stop for a second.
Oh, I think so.
No, you're right.
It says the ingredients on here to the enriched flour.
You're right too. They take the goodie out of some stuff and sell it somewhere else. They take the goodie, like the fat, out of milk and tell you that skim milk's the healthy choice because you don't want to limit the fat. And then they sell the fat over here as butter and whipping cream for 5 times the price. And I was telling some of the others that break. When you take all the fat out of milk and make skim milk, it has a blue tint about like your shirt. And they add chalk back to it and colorings to make it white again because you're not going to drink blue milk. But they tell you that's the healthy one. If you're going to drink milk, which I think you should limit that because at some point humans are the only ones that don't wean their young. I think you should limit it, not that you should avoid it. I think it's got great nutritional value. Obviously, it grows babies into healthy people. But you can go too far with anything. I would argue that if you're going to drink milk, you need to get it straight from the cow or the goat or the camel. Unpasteurized, raw. They call it raw. It doesn't go through pasteurization. Where do you think all those bacteria that they kill are? When they pasteurize milk, where do the bacteria go? They're just in the milk dead. If you left that milk alone, it would turn to yogurt. There's good bacteria in milk. But we kill it out. The reason we kill it out is because the cities of the time didn't have refrigeration and they were unsanitary as hell. Sewers were running down sidewalks. It was real easy to contaminate the milk. It's a great petri dish if you throw sewage in it. But there's actually been lab research that takes raw milk from a cow, add bacteria, bad bacteria to it, come back, and it's gone. How else do you think the calf gets the muddy, crappy teat in its mouth, drink milk, and not get sick? It's literally licking crap off of mama's udder and doesn't get sick. Women who breastfeed, well, that was taboo in the 60s and 70s. You didn't breastfeed your young. No, no, no. This formula is better. If you really want to get scared, look what we're feeding kids if we feed them formula. My son or my child is allergic to breast milk. That is a lie. There may be like 0.1% of kids who can't handle breast milk. Nature didn't mess that up. When a baby is breastfeeding from its mother, there's a symbiotic relationship between the baby's mouth and the mother's breast. If the baby's got a bacteria or a virus or an illness, he or she will give that to the breast during suckling. That breast will create antibodies that will be fed back at the next one to help get over the bacteria and the virus. Oh, that's pretty cool. Got a built-in pharmacy, don't I? Yeah, you also got a built-in food bank. But that was shunned in the 60s and 70s because we wanted to sell formula. If you want to scare the hell out of yourself, read the ingredients of formula. Guaranteed number 1, soy. You know what we prescribe women in menopause who are losing their estrogen? I say we prescribe. What doctors recommend you take before they put you on estrogen therapy? They make you take soy supplements. Because soy is pro-estrogen. So we take little baby boy Johnny here and we stick soy in his mouth as he's developing. And if you find the fats in these snacks, the fat is soy oil. There's even this really catchy phrase now. He's a soy boy, meaning he's lost his masculinity because he's had too much soy. Soybeans, legumes, beans, peas, lentils, those things that we call legumes are full of estrogen-like compounds. They are purposely hormone disruptors because how does the peanut, which is a bean by the way, peanuts are bad. You can't eat a legume without cooking it. You can't eat beans without cooking it. You can't eat peanuts without cooking them. You can, but you'll double up in cramps because the poisons that are in it are being rejected by your body. But you cook those out. How many of you know what poke salad is? No? Poke salad, P-O-K-E, salad. P-O-K-E. It's a plant, grows like spinach, grows in the wild. I mean, don't all plants grow in the wild? Just sometimes we make the wild a little tamer. If you know what poke salad is and you go to eat poke salad, let me tell you, you better boil it off 3 times. You better change the water 3 times and boil it before you can eat it. If you eat it without doing that, it's poisonous. It could kill you. If it doesn't kill you, it could cause extreme GI disturbances. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. To the point you wish you were dead. Question. Who figured out 3 times was enough? All right? Like, damn, I'm hungry. Let's boil it one more time and see if it'll work. I mean, somebody had to sit there and go, got it, 3 times. We did the same thing with peanuts. Hey, we're going to have to roast that before you eat it. Those things are survival foods at best. They have plant defense chemicals. Evolutionarily speaking, we think those chemicals are in those plants to disrupt the hormones of the insects that might feed on them. And we're doing it in massive quantities. How is it not going to affect our hormones? And they do. They do. They do. They suppress testosterone. Well, I'm a female. Is it okay if I eat soy? No, you don't need too much estrogen. There's a condition called polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS. A lot of women have it. A lot of women are infertile, can't have babies. Eggs don't come out right. All the complications of too much estrogen. Nature has a balance, and we're disrupting it in our food choices. So, no breads, because of the way it's processed. No legumes, or very limited legumes. I get all my protein from beans. No, you don't. No, you don't. People who are strict vegetarians struggle to get a complete amino acid profile, which are the building blocks of proteins. Strict vegetarians have to supplement to get all the amino acids they need to build proteins. It's not a complete protein. And they have to really seek out. A vegetarian who doesn't manage their diet well, I can identify immediately. One of the first things I can do, can I touch you again? Yeah. It's going to be your hair this time, okay? You can look at a vegetarian's hair. If they're not doing well in their protein profile, and it'll be crinkly and crumbly and dry and looks like it could break if you touch it. They don't look well. Now, if they're managing it correctly, great. Great. They got an aversion to meat, that's fine. Do you. But they really have to struggle. Us other people, hey, I can eat ribeye and liver and I got everything I need. I can eat an egg. Do you know all proteins are valued against an egg? An egg has a biological value of 1. Just like specific gravity of water, we use water and we just assign it 1 and then compare everything else to it. You with me on that? If we want to compare proteins, we compare it to the egg because it is a complete protein. Egg is complete protein, not the white, not the yellow, all of it. Not the yolk, not the white, all of it, complete protein. Everything else is compared to that.
Raw or cooked?
Huh?
Raw or cooked?
Actually, eggs are weird. When you cook them, the biological value increases. Most foods, when you cook it, the biological value goes down a little bit. But eggs, it actually kind of goes up. Eggs are better for you cooked than raw. It's the denaturing and the unraveling of the proteins when you cook it. I mean, a cooked egg doesn't look like a raw egg, right? A burn to the skin doesn't look like healthy skin. It's because it's been denatured by the heat. Denatured means taken from its natural form. The cooking process just unravels it so your body doesn't have to do all that work. So if you're a raw egg eater, fine. Make sure you know where your eggs are coming from. I wouldn't eat raw eggs from the store because they're washed. And when you wash an egg, you erase the outer layer that seals that egg to keep it clean. If you're one of these people or know one of these people who only eat the eggs that are white, that's got the EB in red ink stamped on the end of it, if you'll look at that Eggland's Best box carton that they come in, 100% vegetarian fed hens. That is not a natural diet for a chicken. Chickens are omnivores. Chickens eat meat. You do not want an egg from a 100% vegetarian fed hen. Boy, it looks good, doesn't it? Only Eggland's Best. We'll bleach the hell out of it and we'll stick white, we'll tattoo that egg. We'll tattoo that egg. We'll charge you 3 times more. And we're getting rid of excess grains and telling you that it's vegan-fed hens, and you're supposed to be all happy about it. Damn, I'm doing good by the environment. Let that chicken go get a worm and eat some crickets. That chicken will eat you if you lay down long enough, and love it. When I feed my chickens meat scraps, it is a dessert. I actually put excess fat in an onion sack and hang it, and they just peck at it. It's a treat for them. And it makes really good, nutritious, dark colored yolk eggs. If you can raise chickens, raise chickens. I don't have room for a chicken. You got room for a dog in a litter box. You got room for a chicken. And you can also get rid of your kitchen scraps without throwing them in the landfill, which would make great compost. If you got a little bit of yard, run 2 or 3 of them in a little box and move it around the yard, and you fertilize and clean up the bugs and the fire ants and everything else out of your yard. Chickens, they're not nasty. They're cool. Get some chickens if you can. Went to Walmart the other day and I didn't have enough eggs. I don't remember, it was a birthday or something. I had to make a cake. See, I'll eat a cake. Life wasn't meant to be miserable. There are treats out there. You just probably shouldn't have them 3 times a day. And there weren't any eggs at Walmart. And this was just recently, like the truck didn't show up or something. I don't know. I mean, our food supply is so unstable. If you lived through COVID, you know how that looked. Got 3 freezers. We don't even have to leave. We'll open the meat. We'll get the deer meat out. We'll get the beef out we had processed. I got bacon. I got pork. I have the advantage that I can do that stuff because I have the property that allows me to raise a beef, raise some pigs, raise some chickens, hunt, gather the pecans, shell the pecans, put them in the freezer. You getting me? I'm thankful of my maker every day that I'm able to do that. I know other people can't do it. And I often find in these classrooms we talk about the ability of doing that kind of stuff. And somebody's like, if you want eggs, I got 40 of them. I can't get rid of all the eggs I get. If we would be coming together as a community and sharing our resources, I think we'd be much better off. Do not eat margarine. If your butter is called country crock, you're not eating butter. You're eating a butter-like product. It is yellow Crisco with artificial flavorings. It is yellow Crisco. If you eat cheese, it better not be Kraft Singles. That's not cheese. That is a cheese-like product. And I love it. Made with 2% milk. That means 2% of that cheese slice is milk, not 100%. Eat real cheese. Let's go back to the folic acid because I interrupted you. And I purposely interrupted you. We look at that and say enriched flour. It's got to be good. We're one of the few countries on the planet that enrich the flour. That folic acid is the answer. So that's why I stopped you, because you're going to take my punchline away. Okay. No, not at all. I asked and you told me, so that's great. The point of that was you don't know what that means, and yet you're eating it. Will you agree on that? You people with these snack packages, you looked at the ingredients like, I don't know what it is. How else would you go? Would you go eat something else you didn't know what it was? But because it's sealed in that package and you had to pay for it, you say, well, it's got to be good. I love the title of that one, Munchies. If you get the Munchies, we're in it. What's the title of yours? You're going to butcher it, huh?
Velveeta Crunchy.
Whatever that is. What was the commonality between the ingredients we read? They were very common, weren't they? Almost identical. Different proportions with the different artificial flavorings and colorings give you a different product. If you take your phone and you go to Walmart or any supermarket and you just go on the boxed aisles where all the food's in boxes and take pictures of just the ingredient label, go home, you won't know what you took because they'll all look the same. Some form of seed oil. What? I'm going to poll the class just to see something. I may have already messed up my research by throwing bias out there. Granted, it's a shortcoming of my little research article here. Raise your hand if you think canola oil is good for you.
I just use it. I don't even know what's good or bad.
You use canola oil?
There's no like virgin oil or anything else.
Anybody else use canola oil in their home? Do? Where's it come from?
I don't know.
Canolas? Well, where does olive oil come from? Olives. Where does soybean oil come from? Where does corn oil come from? Yeah, after you chemically adulterate it and get it out there, but that's a different story. But you know where it comes from. Where's canola oil come from? Well, there are no canola plants. Oh, there is a plant that it comes from, but it's not called canola.
Do they take a bunch of seed oils and mix them?
It comes from the rape seed plant. Well, that's not very marketable. It's rape oil. It literally is. It comes from the rape seed plant. Canola is a play on words. It's pieces of words put together to make a new word. You know how that works in English language? During the World Wars, World War I, World War II, canola oil, rapeseed oil, made a great naval lubricant. So we needed it in the war efforts. It was used by the gross tons in the war efforts on naval ships. It could withstand the environment. It was a great lubricant. It held up well under the steam-powered naval vessels. So those steam engines needed a lubricant, and canola oil, rapeseed oil, was a great one. Wars ended, thank God. Canada was the largest producer of this naval lubricant. The wars ended. They had tons of it, literally. Like, what are we going to do with this? Why? We've got an industry here, and now it's over. The farmers, the manufacturers, the shippers, the suppliers, it's over. You can't disrupt an industry as big as this. Let's heat it. Let's denature it. Let's bleach it, because rapeseed oil in its virgin form is so stinky, no one would eat it. No one would eat it. It stinks. So let's chemically adulterate it. Here's where I get pissed. Go to the supermarket, find canola oil, and it will likely wear the American Heart Association seal for heart health. It is not heart healthy, but it wears the seal. Anecdotal funny story. You kind of got my passion. You kind of see it. I hope you see it. I want you to see it. I was at Walmart one day back during the summer. I've told this story to other classes, and I'm standing there, and I'm wanting lard, but there's a woman there with a basket, and there's like the Walmart shoppers who are just crowding the stores, in my opinion. And I just need that lard so I can go home and use it on my Blackstone. because I'm going to make some fajitas. Okay? I need that lard. I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. This Walmart shopper standing there with her cart, and this old lady with this basket says, ma'am, can you help me? It's like a 60-year-old lady. She might have only been 30. Ma'am, can you help me? And she's like, yeah, what do you need? What are you looking for? Well, I'm not looking for anything, but I'm sitting here looking at these, and I'm trying to find out which one of these cooking oils is the healthiest. Got my attention. I kind of just back up and kind of look at her. Okay, let's see where this is going. And that Walmart worker's like, I don't know. Good luck. Walks off. You know, I'm like, well, she asked for help. She probably doesn't want mine, but I'm going to give it. I'm going to offer it anyway. I said, ma'am, excuse me, you say you're looking for a heart-healthy oil? She's like, yeah. I said, none of them. Well, what am I going to do? I said, well, actually, it's the one I'm going for down here because I don't see tallow, so I'm going to get the lard. Tallow is rendered beef fat. Lard is rendered pork fat. I said, I'm going to get the lard. Boy, she backed up and said, lard? Yeah, I'm going to get the lard. I said, that's, of the choices here, that's probably the healthiest. And she's like, you don't understand, son. I just had a heart attack. And I'm like, and you're looking for seed oils? But okay. She said, my cardiologist would have a fit if he knew I bought lard. You do what your doctor tells you to do, ma'am. I'm sorry to intervene. And she's like, well, I got to pick one because I just got to have my fried potatoes. And I'm like, oh my God. I got to have my fried potatoes. Obviously against her doctor's advice. You want one to be better? And I'll get off the oils for a minute. We'll shift over into the carbohydrates. If you know someone who is a diabetic, like an insulin-taking type 1 diabetic, if you know someone who's taking insulin as a diabetic and they're really managing their diabetes well, and it wasn't because of a lifestyle choice, it's that bad luck. You were born without beta cells in the islets of Langerhans in your pancreas and they just don't make insulin. Okay? So you got to take it. But that's the 10% that's bad luck. Bad genetic lottery. They won't eat potatoes because their blood sugar, it jacks their blood sugar way up. They will not eat potatoes. All the starchies and stuff. Do you know this? How do you know this?
My friend that I work with, he's a diabetic, and I was eating potatoes, and I asked if he wanted some because they were good, and he said no, I'll pass out if I eat those.
Anybody else know this? You know this? How did you know this?
I had a friend that I worked with.
That was
Same thing.
He would not eat potatoes, would he? You're going to have a stroke, Brandon. It's okay. If you go to the store today and you look at a bag of white potatoes, it wears the seal of the American Diabetes Association. I am not lying. I stumbled upon that by accident. They give food away at the college here once a month.
Shit, it's the blue and white ribbon, isn't it?
Yes. And I got a bag of potatoes because they're throwing them in the dump. Probably shouldn't say this being recorded. My chickens and pigs love them. If you're going to throw them in the dump, I'm taking them home. We're not putting potatoes in the dumpster when there are animals that can be fed from it. But boy, don't we waste the food in this world. You got to get rid of them or they're going to sit up in the student union building and rot. A rotten potato smells like a dead, decomposing body, by the way. You want to know what a dead, decomposing body smells like? Smell of a rotten potato. Identical, in my opinion. So I took this bag of potatoes home and I laid it up there. And my wife said, what are you going to do with those potatoes? We don't eat those anymore. And I'm like, well, if we want to eat some, we have some here. Every now and then it won't hurt you. She said, I don't think we have any lard to fry them in. Okay. They were intended for the pig anyway. I'm just sitting there looking at it. American Heart Association, seal, and American Diabetic Association, seal. I may have a picture of it on my phone, and I took it and I sent it to my mom, who's a diabetic. I'm like, can you believe this? She said, they're trying to kill us, aren't they? I'm like, apparently. You guys knew that from what? True evidence with people who suffer from the disease.
And crackers.
No. 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 Therefore, probably not a good idea to eat potatoes. Sweet potatoes are not potatoes. Sweet potatoes are a member of the morning glory family. Much more nutritional value in a sweet potato. And don't worry about the carbs in something called a sweet potato. It's just a name, okay? That is not a true potato. The true potatoes, really hard on your metabolic syndrome, lead to insulin resistance. Sugars, fructose. Do not drink your sugar. Orange juice, apple juice. No. Do not drink your sugars. Don't drink juices. Don't drink juices. There is so much fructose in a glass of apple juice or orange juice or grape juice. There's so much fructose in there with no fiber that your liver says, what in the just came down? That's like a year's worth of fructose that you just poured down here, and you want me to do something with it. We always think about the pancreas and blood sugar control. At any one time in a healthy individual, there's about 1 teaspoon equivalent of sugar in the entire blood system, entire blood volume. About 1 teaspoon of sugar. If you get 1.5 teaspoons of sugar, it could be deadly. If you get 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, it could be deadly. We need to keep that 1 teaspoon level constant in our body. Otherwise, we're either hyperglycemic or hypo. Hyper means too much. Hypo means too low. Glyce means sugar. Glucose. Emia means in the blood. Okay? That balance is a delicate, delicate balance. You're going to learn in this class how to take people's blood sugar, and it needs to be within a range. If it gets above, your body immediately gets rid of that sugar and says, we're going to do something else with it. If it gets too low, your body's going to say, get me the sugar out of the storehouse. So your body's in a constant storing sugar or pulling it out of the storehouse. What do we do in our normal diets today? Do we ever turn to the storehouse to get the sugar? No, we just keep adding more and 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 more. You know what the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is in the United States? That's a designated series of underground storage sites, caverns and stuff, where they pump crude oil off in there. Excess crude oil is shipped over here to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. In times of need and war and things that look bad, we'll still have oil to run the economy. And we use it as a political pawn now, which is unfortunate. So excess crude oil is pushed off into the reserve. Excess sugar is pushed off into the what? Reserve. What is our reserve? It's fat. That's what that is. That's the reserve. So you get too much sugar, goes to the blood, takes it around the cells and say, cells, y'all hungry? And the cells in this insulin resistant metabolic syndrome horseman setup go, I am so sick of sugar, I don't even want to look at it. No, stay away. That's called insulin resistance. And we even tease the cell a little bit, like, come on, we got insulin with you. And you love insulin. No, I don't want it anymore. So it stays in the bloodstream. Or the cell's satisfied. Stays there for about 48 hours. And for what reason? Why does this extra stay in the bloodstream for 48 hours? In case you don't eat for the next 48 hours. It can say, hey, I kind of take that now if you don't mind. But what do we typically do within that 48 hours? Huckabee, this goes back to your question about fasting. What do we typically do in that 48 hours? We probably eat about 8 times. And what do we eat? Same old stuff. More sugar, here we go. What are you going to do with it? The long-term storage is over here as adipose tissue or fat, because you just keep accessing. And our ancestors didn't do that. Kills, hunts were hard. And when we did kill an animal, we ate the organ meat first because it was the most nutritious, and is the most nutritious, and we jerkied the muscle meat. We could cure it, we could jerky it, we could share it, we could smoke it. We learned how to preserve it as time went on. But you might not find another deer, antelope, elk, kangaroo for a long time. That's when you turn to the vegetables and the fruits and go, I can get by on this until I find something else. Now, not all of you were in here during break, but I was talking about an Aboriginal tribe off of the big island of Australia, small islands. Got a little Aboriginal people there. That's all they've ever known. Very tribal. 1956, a group of researchers landed on the island and they almost got killed and eaten by these Aboriginal people because they had never seen any outsiders before. And they're like, you're a stranger? You don't belong with us. There's very few, if any, plant sources to eat, so these people are almost 100%, if not 100% carnivore. You can find them on the internet if you want to look them up. The picture that the researchers took, it's a black and white photograph, and there are like 4 or 5 guys standing here of various ages from old man to young adolescent. I mean, you won't find a bodybuilder that is as developed as they are, because they're just standing there in a loincloth. I'm not even too sure they just didn't black out the genitals so you wouldn't see. I don't know. But they're basically naked. So you get to see their whole physique. And they are ripped. You look at them and go, they have to be on the roids. No, they're not. They don't have any weapons. If they do, they're primitive. But they're carnivores. But they don't have weapons. In other words, they don't have deer rifles and stuff like that. They have skills. Endurance, strength. They eat kangaroo by chasing them to death. How do they kill their kangaroo? They run them to death. Man, the animal man, mankind, can outrun distance-wise all the other animals. We're not going to be the fastest in the 20 yards, but we can go and go and go. We can run these fast animals to death because they fatigue easily. Now I want you to just stop and think about chasing a kangaroo and have the argument that carnivore is not good for you. Okay? You'll have those arguments. You'll get that pushback. You'll get that push. What about cholesterol? What about it? Tell me about cholesterol. You ever heard of healthy cholesterol and unhealthy cholesterol? Like HDL and LDL? There's only one. There's only one. There's only one cholesterol. It's the lipoproteins. It's the smaller components of cholesterol is what they're measuring when they get an LDL and an HDL. But it's just cholesterol. Okay? Your body makes it. Whether you eat it or not, your body will make it. It is the precursor to most of your hormones, if not all of them. Low cholesterol, low testosterone, low estrogen. If I told you that I think it's somewhere around 75%, if my memory serves me, of people in the hospital with a documented myocardial infarction, which is called a heart attack, have what's considered normal cholesterol levels. Wait a minute. Run that by me again. Somewhere around 75%, I think, of the people who are in the hospital with a documented, verifiable heart attack via lab work and EKG and all that other stuff, clogged arteries, have normal cholesterol levels. So what's the deal with cholesterol and heart disease? It's really not the cholesterol. It's something called ApoB. It's a small component of that cholesterol, and that's what they should be measuring, but they don't measure that on lab tests. They measure overall cholesterol, and if your overall cholesterol, total cholesterol is too high, they'll prescribe you a statin drug. And don't quote me on the numbers here, but it used to be like if your cholesterol was 250, you got prescribed a statin, which is a drug that makes your liver stop making cholesterol, therefore it lowers it. They put you on a fat-free, cholesterol-free diet. and your cholesterol should come down. And then they changed the guidelines overnight and said anybody with a cholesterol over 200 should get a statin. That occurred, I think, in the 90s, and there were people who were getting called by their pharmacy and say, hey, we got a script ready for you. You want to come down and pick it up? And you're like, what's my script for? And they're like, your doctor just put you on a statin. Overnight, people were prescribed statins. It doubled the sales of that company. Sorry. You can play with that however you want to play with it. Pharmaceutical industry is the most advertised industry in the United States. And I think it's New Zealand, and that's the only other country that allows pharmaceutical advertising on TV. Have you ever seen a pharmaceutical commercial? You probably see them on your phones now. And if you're an old crotchy guy who watches Fox News all day, you get a lot more of them. And they're probably commercials more geared toward diseases of the men. Got ED? Got a pill for that. Got high cholesterol? Got a pill for that. Got high blood pressure? Got a pill for that. Not feeling your best? Kind of depressed? We got a pill for that. That pill's not working? Add this one and maybe that pill will start working. You ever heard the 1-800-DRUG commercials? If you or someone you know, have been killed, I'm like, how does that guy talk? Oh, grandpa died of this, I'm gonna go sue the pharmaceutical company. 1-800-BAD-DRUG. This ought to scare the hell out of you. We're gonna do pharmacology here in a few weeks, and pharmacology, study of drugs and drug development. These drugs go to market. How do they go to market? Well, they have to go through trials. What do they have to do in trials? Prove themselves to be safe, right? After they're deemed to be safe, we can put them on the market. Those drug manufacturers have a slush fund, an investment fund for 1-800-BAD-DRUG. They know that at some point this drug could cause complications and we're going to be sued and we're going to have to pay out a whole lot of money. We're going to take this on patent drug money, we're going to put it in an investment fund. And so when 1-800, how has Johnson survived all these things that's happened to them, right? They got a big slush fund. Those statisticians they know like, this is probably going to happen long term. Be ready for it. That's scary. That's scary. How many drugs do we take because the drug that we are taking has a side effect that we need to counter? The drug for pain relief burns your stomach, but let me give you a drug that will calm your stomach down. There's a trend going on right now where some very, very few, because when they make this trend, they're kicked out of the club, who say, you know what, we got a perfect design right here, and we don't need chemicals to fix it. Disclaimer, medicines have saved lives. Medicines are good when they're needed. I'm just talking about these medicines that we never stop taking. If I get an illness, I'm gonna love the antibiotic, right? If I'm having a heart attack, I'm gonna love the heparin. I'm gonna love the aspirin. I'm gonna love the antiplatelet. But that doesn't mean I stay on it forever. I'm talking about drugs that you take chronically, these chronic illnesses, and that's what you want to head off. I think I've bored you to tears, so I'm gonna let you talk now. Ask me anything, if you have anything to ask me.
What would be your substitute for bread or apple juice? The potatoes, I got sweet potatoes as the substitute.
A substitute for a juice?
Yeah.
And what are you trying to get out of the juice?
Well, I don't really drink apple juice as much. I do sometimes, but I drink the naked drinks, like fruits. I drink that. But I love bread, so I didn't know.
Well, okay, back to your original question. What are you trying to? You asked me what is the substitute for the juices. What are you? My question back is, what are you trying to achieve from those? So, I want you to be in a concept of, I want everything that goes into your mouth to be thought of as, that's my DNA for tomorrow. Because your DNA is replicating, your cells are replicating throughout life. And they only replicate based upon the ingredients that you give it. You can't build a house without raw materials. True? You can't build a car, you can't build a tire, you can't build this desk without raw materials. You can't build your body without raw materials. So if you make a conscious effort to think about what raw material am I putting in my body for tomorrow? So that leads me to the question, what are you trying to get out of the juice?
Well, not so much the
If you just like it, just say I like it.
I like the juice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
it's sweet and it tastes good.
I don't really like apple juice that much, but I like the blended up like strawberries, bananas, mangoes, things like that.
It's good. I think you like it because it's good. I may be wrong in that, but you haven't given me a better answer.
Well, the nutrients I like, because I don't.
Okay.
I don't eat fruits. I don't have like just mangoes all the time, so I figured if I buy
So we've kind of gotten to this concept that fruits and vegetables are also good for us, and they are, but you don't need much of it. And the risk to cost ratio of a fruit or vegetable, mostly water, fiber, good for the gut. That's the answer you should be getting out of it. Maybe some fiber, so the gut bacteria, the gut microbiome can grow. Grows just as fine in the Aboriginal tribes.
What about protein shakes?
Usually they're full of something that makes you able to drink them. I'm not opposed to the protein. About 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight should be consumed by you, especially as you get older. The more your protein should go up. And that's kind of contradictory to what we've been taught and told. But old people have a problem building and maintaining muscle, so they need as much raw ingredient as they can possibly synthesize. Ensure is terrible. Ensure is terrible. My mother was on the Ensure thing, and I didn't know she was on it. She's a type 2 diabetic and all this, and she's like, I gotta get my nutrition. Go buy me some of those Ensure. And they were expensive, and I picked them up and said, Mom, you're drinking this? $24 for a 12-pack of them? Beer is a lot cheaper, probably better for you. No, I'm kind of kidding there. Mom, you can't drink this. It's soybean oil and sugar. And my whole list of added ingredients. I never answered the folic acid thing. Enriched flour is sprayed with folic acid to prevent neural tubal birth defects in women who are pregnant. And to prevent that birth defect, and it's just a deficiency in vitamins, we as a government say spray all the flour with folic acid. It's enriched now. But there is a large percentage, like 55% of the population, who cannot metabolize folic acid, and it becomes toxic because it builds up because they can't get rid of it. They can't. There is a gene mutation, MTHFMR, something like that. It's got a nickname in the medical community, and it's called the mother gene. Because if you got it, you can't metabolize, you can't methylate B vitamins. And that's what folic acid is. You can't break it down. So with a large percent of the population who has that gene mutation, and you can get like half of the gene mutation from dad, but you could have a mom and a dad that both gave it to you. Now you got the double whammy. So folic acid actually causes some issues. But we blanket cover it and say, has it prevented birth defects? Sure. No, not a question about it. But a lot of you in here will never be pregnant, and you're getting this. You can buy non-enriched flour that doesn't have folic acid in it. Folic acid to some people doesn't do well. Folic acid to some people may be a cause of some of their underlying issues because they can't metabolize it. And they wouldn't know that without genetic testing and somebody telling them. Crazy, huh? Crazy. You don't have high blood pressure because you're missing lisinopril, right? You don't have type 2 diabetes because you didn't have metformin in your diet. We're not looking in modern medicine as a cause of these issues. We just prescribe the pharmaceutical. I'm not saying they're all bad, but I think we should try some other stuff first. Okay? Any other questions? Yes?
Why don't we write down our food log? What do we?
I want you to take your food log and your diet now and go, what am I doing with what I'm eating that is contributing to my health and well-being? And I want you to strike through anything that you think, or put a question mark and go, I'm going to go look that up. Has anybody got anything in there they're like, I just wiped mine out, it's gone? Yes, you? Like it's gone. You tolerate that well as a young person right now? You tolerate that well as a young person right now? But it's taking a toll. It really is.
Would you say to research the metabolic syndrome?
Yeah, metabolic syndrome. That's not mandatory or anything. That's kind of eye-opening. Because then you start seeing a whole new group of people who are there but not there yet. Does that make sense? Yes.
I have a question. So with plants like legumes, as in like peanuts,
Uh-huh.
are those all bad for you? All legumes?
They are, when I say bad, they have protein, yes. Can you live on them? Yes. Can you eat some? Yes. There is a concept that if you eat some of these plants that may have some toxins in them, there is a concept called hormesis. That'd be another thing if you want to look that up. Hormesis. That's just when I stress the body, it comes back stronger. Exercise is hormesis. Hormetic effect. My muscles get stronger and more resilient when I work out. My heart gets stronger when I run. All that. There's some theory out there that eating those plant defense chemicals in small quantities just make you more resistant and stronger and better. But just a large amount of them will poison you. I don't know that I've answered your question though.
I think you have.
They do have protein in them, but is it worth, I can get my protein elsewhere and not bring the chemicals in.
So, mainly in regards to, I like potatoes.
Plus they spray them with so much stuff.
And then when it comes to peanut butter.
Oh, no. No, that's bread, man. I love peanut butter and syrup sandwich. No. Peanut butter on toast? No. Peanut butter's got to go.
At what age does it have to go? Like, I can tolerate it.
Yeah, it should never even been invented.
What about like almond butter?
No.
Really? Not even
Any sort of like nut butter?
Those things don't look good without adulteration of their chemical makeup. Right. Some people drink almond milk and I go, I've never milked an almond. I can't find what I'm supposed to milk. But it's catchy and people buy into this and then they wonder why they're constantly on a diet, why they're constantly unhealthy. And it's the latest thing, and if I pay a lot for it, then it must be good.
So I have another question. So my question regarding to legumes and the peanuts and stuff is does those same principles result in the same thing with tree nuts as well? Would you have that same opinion?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
Tree nuts full of, everybody's deficient in magnesium.
Yeah.
Everybody's deficient in magnesium. I can promise you right now, odds are your magnesium levels are less than optimal. And I haven't even talked about sunlight, and that's a great one. Tree nuts, though, deep roots, deep soil, bring up nutrients. But here's the deal with tree nuts. If you were to stumble upon a pecan tree and sit down and eat nuts from a pecan tree, you would get tired of cracking nuts. Oh, just like pistachios, But let's make it easy. We can hull and shell all these nuts for you. You just reach in a bag, cover them with salt, and just eat a bunch of them. At that point, you're losing the effectiveness. It's an occasional thing. Good healthy fats. There's some research out there that says consuming cashews daily, like a handful of cashews daily, has more antidepressant effects than antidepressant medications. Why? Your brain loves the fats. Your brain has to have fat. This fat-free movement that we went through over the past few decades was horrible for our mental health, horrible for our overall health, but really horrible for our mental health. I find that really odd in some ways. We have fat-free lifestyles and we have an increase in antidepressant. Do you know when cardiovascular disease became the #1 killer? Do you know when it became one of the 4 horsemen? What happened there? Crisco. Loretta Lynn, the country and western singer, came on TV and said, if you use this, your pie crust will be as flaky as Grandma's. Now, Grandma's pie crust was flaky because she used lard. Lard is expensive to produce, render, and distribute, and it has a shelf life. It will go rancid after a while. It was a biological product. It will rot over time. Crisco doesn't rot. Crisco is used by all these oils. We add hydrogen to it, and it was the worst thing for our civilization that ever hit. Our SAD diet, our standard American diet, which is nicknamed SAD. It's a SAD diet, standard American diet. When Crisco and those hydrogenated vegetable oils hit the market, the margarines, the Criscos, the shortenings, cheap substitute for lard, cheap substitute for butter, heart disease shot up.
What about Pam?
Horrible. Because you're not spraying lard out, you're not spraying tallow out, you're spraying out one of these seed oils.
What about bacon grease?
Awesome.
What about avocado oil?
Awesome. Though it doesn't, I don't think it withstands the heat as well as beef tallow or lard will.
What about fasting?
That question came up, intermittent fasting and fasting. If you look in a hunter-gatherer environment, that was built in. That was built in. Narrowing your eating window to small hours, the smaller you make the window, the more weight you will lose. That's pretty obvious, isn't it?
So like eat once a day?
Yeah, if it works for you. How about just eat when you're hungry?
I do. I eat.
Yeah, just eat when you're hungry. Now, a lot of what we eat, fructose for one. Fructose, that stuff in the orange juice, that stuff that's half of table sugar is fructose. Fructose destroys the cells in your body, in your stomach, that says when you're hungry or not. It just takes them offline, so you're always hungry. If you're consuming fructose, you're hungrier. You appear to be hungrier than you actually are. It disrupts that totally. The semaglutide, the Ozempic, Wegovy, all that stuff, that's going in there and jacking with those cells and saying, produce more GLP-1s to tell the brain we're not hungry. Steak does that too. Steak will activate those cells, those GLP-1 receptor sites in the stomach too. And I promise you, ribeye is cheaper than semaglutide. And obviously there's some nutritional value to those ribeyes. And I use ribeyes, just that comparison thing. Ribeyes are too expensive. They are shocking when you look in the meat department and go, $45 for 3. Okay, I'm going to feed my wife and my son and myself ribeyes for $45. May or may not add a sweet potato to it. Anymore I don't. Just the ribeye's enough. If I really wanted to, I could cut that ribeye in half after I cooked it and bring it to lunch today. So could they. Because you ever go to a steakhouse and you get the small piece of meat and you eat it and you're like, man, I'd like to have another piece. That doesn't really work that way, does it? You're like, okay, I'm good. But boy, you eat the potato or the salad or the roll, I want another salad, another potato, and another roll. You can eat the rolls till you blow apart and you still want another one, but you're blowing apart. You're like, I am in misery, but that's so good. You won't do that with steak, meat. You're like, that's enough. $45, even if we all eat the ribeye. If I take the 3 of us and go to McDonald's and eat till I'm satisfied, maybe I just get 3 of the number 1s. It's going to encroach up on there, isn't it? It's going to encroach upon that. That fast food is expensive now, people. And there's a hidden cost. So are pharmaceuticals that counter it. These old people in this time frame up here, old people, me old people, if I'm on a medication, it's much more expensive. It's destroying my fixed income. There are people out there, and you're going to encounter those in this business, who are spending several hundred, if not $1,000 a month on meds. that never go away. It's not a med to get over something and then you're done with it. These are chronic, long-term, rest of your life medications. Any other questions before I talk about sunlight real quick? Yes?
Is all bread just bad then?
Is all what?
All bread.
Is all bread bad? Short answer is yes. Sourdough bread, that's bread that's alive.
Yeah, I was asking about that.
Sourdough bread, yeah, because it's not adulterated, but it's still got a raw ingredient. What is your raw ingredient? It probably should start with raw flour, non-enriched flour, blah, 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 blah. Cabbage, fermented cabbage, awesome. Kimchi, awesome. Good for the gut microbiome. You want to eat fermented foods. You want to eat fermented foods. Fermented cheeses, fermented meats, fermented cabbage, sauerkraut.
What about beets?
Beets are full of nitric oxide. You need nitric oxide. The problem with beets in the long-term setup of things is most people eat beets that are processed with lots of sugars. Anything else? If something comes up, feel free to ask it at any time. And we'll close out today by talking about sunlight. Bad, right? Have you heard sunlight's bad? What's sunlight do to you? What's the bad of sunlight? Skin cancer. What's the good of sunlight? Vitamin D3 sensitization. As long as you got magnesium on board. So kind of the general rule, and I won't spend a lot of time on this. Guys, you need to expose your body to sunlight. About 7 minutes a day for Caucasian, lighter skinned people. The darker skinned you are, the more you need to be exposed. The lighter skinned you are, the less you need to be exposed. Burning is not an option. I'm not saying exposed to burn. As you tan and get darker, you probably need a little more exposure to get the same vitamin D equivalency. Does that make sense? During COVID, this was really well pronounced. People with low vitamin D levels were the ones who suffered the most in COVID, if not died from COVID. And one of the craziest things we've done is we isolated ourselves indoors during COVID. Vitamin D is not as much of a vitamin as it is a hormone. We just named that hormone vitamin D. It's a hormone because it's produced by your body. And you need it for overall general well-being and health. You need it for hormone synthesization. You need it for your immune system. You got to have vitamin D. I'm going to laugh. You're going to laugh at me, maybe. There are parts of your body who hasn't seen sunlight since you were a toddler playing in the backyard of your mom's house. There are parts of your body who hasn't seen sunlight since. When I talk about that 7-minute exposure for Caucasian or lighter skinned people, that's with 1/3 of the body exposed. That's shorts and t-shirt. Okay? Your body is a great solar energy factory. Your skin is wonderful. So the more of it you can expose, the better the hormone synthesization will occur. And the shorter time you have to spend in it. Remember, burning's not an option. Does it age the skin and all that? I don't think that can be argued. I think where we get into some trouble with this is, 1, we isolate totally. 2, we add chemicals to our skin to keep the sunlight from hitting it. That's not necessarily a good thing. These sunscreens and stuff, are they mineral-based or are they chemical-based? The chemical-based ones actually change their chemical structure when exposed to the UV light. Yeah, they block the UV light by changing the structure of themselves. I don't know about all that. There tends to be an increase in rickets. Rickets is when bones of kids don't develop correctly and they walk bow-legged and their bones aren't forming correctly. Low vitamin D levels are to attribute to that. So what do we do to our kids? We don't let them go outside. If we do, we cover them in sunscreen and hats and all this other stuff. I'm not saying burning is an option. I'm just saying we don't get enough natural sunlight. It's also good for our eyes. You're like, what? Sunlight good for the eyes? What about cataracts and stuff? I'm not talking about staring at the noonday sun. I'm talking about staring at the sun as it comes up before it hurts your eyes. that sets your circadian rhythms. That's what makes your sleep cycle work. Get early morning sunlight exposure in your eyes. It makes your day better. Stress the body. Deliberate cold exposure. Deliberate heat exposure. Yes, cold plunge. Yes, get in a sauna. Yes, stress the body. And the body will respond by getting stronger. Plus you get this large dopamine hit when you do that carries you through the day and you feel just great. You never get out of a cold plunge unhappy. You may go in unhappy, and you may be unhappy while you're in there. But when you get out, you feel awesome. You feel great. It's kind of hard to do when it's 104 outside, I know. Cold showers work.
Bag ice is like 7-9 cents.
Huh?
The bag ice is on like 7-9 cents.
If you want to do that every day, yes, awesome. Fill your bathtub full of ice and get in it. It's about to get good though, because the outdoor water that you keep will stay cold now, once we get into fall and winter. Anything else?
You gotta do attendance.
I did. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the reminder. So next Thursday we will be in a lab setting. We'll talk more about that as we go through. So I won't see you again until Monday. So the chapter in your book that we will dive right off into is chapter 6. We will spend the whole week in chapter 6 and 6. We'll spend 3 days in chapter 6. It's about to get fun. Anybody else have a question? Well, thanks for putting up with that. I hope you got something out of it.